Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Seeing Ability podcast, where we're having a conversation about the world of families raising kids with disabilities. And a lot of families feel overwhelmed and alone. And this podcast is an effort to build a community with a conversation around this topic. So, we're going to be talking to adults who have or are raising kids with disabilities. Sometimes we're going to have that kid who grew up with a difference be our guest. And we're going to have a lot of nonprofits that are serving this community, people in education, people in healthcare. First of all, we know you're busy, so thank you for tuning in with us today. I've got Allison, and I'm going to let her tell a little bit about her guest. She's from Erin's Hope for Friends, which is a nonprofit located in Lexington, Kentucky, not far down the road from where I hail. Allison, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much. I have Rich here with us. Rich is a parent of two members of Ease Club and our board member who serves as treasurer.
Fantastic. Rich, welcome.
Hey, great to be here.
As my listeners know, we like to start off with a little getting to know you guys. We call it the Fast Four, brought to us by our friends at Reliable Tech Help. They're at 797-7399 here in the 502. We're going to start out with the fun one. Allison, what's your favorite food?
Popcorn.
Rich.
Love it.
If I had to pick a last meal, I would probably say a big dish of Polish pierogies.
Okay, that's a good one. We'll stick with you, Rich. If we looked at your playlist, what's music you're listening to?
Yeah, when my wife's not around and my kids are not around, I like to watch westerns, and so I've been listening to Ennio Morricone, who famously did music for a lot of the spaghetti westerns back in the 60s and 70s. I'm kind of listening through his whole oeuvre right now. So
Awesome. Allison, how about you?
I'm a big country music fan, so I like to cycle through a lot of different artists there.
Okay. Allison, we'll stay with you. What about recently a book, a movie, a TV show, even a guilty pleasure streaming show? What are you enjoying?
I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and
Okay.
right now I am listening to Reese Witherspoon's new thriller that she co-wrote.
Oh, fantastic. And Rich, what about you?
like I said, I've been doing the spaghetti western things
Yep.
lately. So I've been going through the whole Sergio Leone catalog lately after my kids go to bed. Um,
Fantastic. Now, last but not least, if you could speak to someone famous, maybe currently or that you haven't met, or bring them back from history and sit down with them, who would it be?
oh
So
gosh.
for me, I would choose Alexander Hamilton. My 7-year-old is a huge fan, and he would love to meet A. Ham.
That would be fascinating. Rich, how about you?
I'm a huge nerd, and so I'm not going to go so important. I would say J.R.R. Tolkien because I've got a lot of nerd questions that I would want to have answers to, and if I got to resurrect him and have him as a captive audience, that would be a great opportunity.
I love it. All right, Allison, since this is one of our nonprofit spotlight episodes, we'll talk a little bit more later in the episode in depth about what you guys do, but give us kind of that 30,000 foot overview of what Erin's Hope for Friends is all about.
Yeah. So Erin's Hope for Friends Kentucky is a nonprofit that provides safe and joyful social experiences to neurodivergent individuals, primarily on the weekends. So we host three different events each weekend for our members to attend in our club space.
Fantastic. And how long have you guys been around?
So our national organization has been around for about 10 years, and we've been here in Lexington since 2019.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's dive in. One topic I wanted to talk about is you talked about kids who have some sort of neurodivergence, and what kind of, this is a question open to both of you. We can go back and forth. What kind of impact does that kind of diagnosis typically have for the entire family? Who wants to jump in?
Well, I know for us, I've got two children. One's 21 and one's 14 now, and we got diagnoses for autism and some other conditions fairly early on. And I think we came from, my immediate family. We didn't have any kind of kids or persons with disabilities, so it was completely new to me. And I think, becoming a parent in the early aughts, I think there was still a lot of questions and confusion out there. I think we know a lot more and we're a lot more sophisticated when it comes to people with autism and other disabilities. But there was, but we've come a long way, and so I think we felt very scared because
Mhm.
when you become a parent, you have a million ideas about what you want your kids to do and be in life, and suddenly the uh, everything gets rearranged, and it can be exciting, and it is exciting, but you gotta learn as a parent and do stuff maybe you weren't anticipating, and um, so I think it came as a surprise and a shock, and it's been quite an adventure for us.
I think the title of the chapter in my book is Curveball.
Curveball, yeah.
Life kind of throwing you the little something you didn't expect. I guess just staying on that particular topic, having to adjust, like you said, you didn't have a background perspective in it.
No.
Looking back, and you probably, having kids that are older now, you might get younger parents or newer parents coming to you and say, "Hey, Rich, you've been there. What advice do you give for parents to make that adjustment when they're kind of overwhelmed, kind of knocked between the eyes of like, oh my gosh, my kid has a diagnosis. They're going to be on some sort of different path than what I had thought." What's your advice to them?
To find other parents and to find other family members. And, I think that's one of the great things about East Club is it's really for the kids. It's about the kids um, having a social club, and we'll talk about everything we do at East Club. But I think as a parent, I get to meet other parents,
Yeah.
and at our East Club here in Lexington, we have a separate room where the kids are kind of doing their own thing, and the parents. Who want to stay and not go off and go shopping or whatever, they can stay and they can talk to each other. And I'll tell
Mm.
you, it's very much a I don't know what's the term, jam session where the parents are sharing like this happened to me today, or I'm dealing with this lately, and it can be kind of sad, it can be kind of funny, and it's definitely reassuring because you say to yourself, I'm not alone. I think when I
Yeah.
started, when my kid was diagnosed 19 years ago, I felt alone. And so my advice is go out and find places like East Club, find support groups, find Special Olympics or other groups that focus on neurodivergent kids of all kinds and get involved with them, not just only for your kids' sake, but also for your sake. And to feel like you're not alone, that you're all in this together, that we're a tribe, that we are a community. It was a huge eye opener for me and my wife when we discovered that that was the case. At first, we didn't know. We felt very alone, but we're
Yeah.
not.
What a powerful thing to go from feeling alone to feeling part of a community.
Right, right,
Really
right.
can't overstate the value of that. And Allison, you've got a front row seat. That's the neat thing about the work you do to not only a lot of wonderful teens, but a lot of their families. What would you say about like what you've experienced with that impact on the family?
Yeah, so in my previous life, I was a clinician. So I'm a board certified behavior analyst. And in that role, I met families very early on in their diagnostic journey. They would get a diagnosis and they would come in for treatment. And so with those families, you're really in a role of connecting them to resources and getting them through the kind of triage of here's your
Mm.
diagnosis and here's what you do next. And in this role, what I love about Ease Club is um, some families come to us early on in that diagnostic process still, and we're able to be a community resource for them. But a lot of families come to us with older children, and they have walked through those early steps already and now they're looking towards planning for their loved one's future. And so they're looking for resources, they're looking for next steps. And so at East Club, we're able to provide our member events, but when we're also able to provide community wide events so that the whole family can come and siblings can meet other siblings who are walking through similar journeys, and parents can meet other parents and share resources while their children are in a safe space that's familiar to them and they know that they're going to be safe and loved while they're getting to make those connections. One of the
Yeah,
things
I
we like
love
to
that.
say is, if you want to have a village, you have to be a villager. And so our families really take that to heart, and they really work to be that community for each other.
So, same thing. What would be your advice to that young parent who's kind of right now really looking at the glasses less than half full, maybe even broken? You know, they're thinking of all the things their kid is going to be challenged with, the things they won't be able to do, and they're kind of overwhelmed in that stage. What's your advice for them?
So, first of all, let yourself mourn and grieve, right? You are allowed to have all of those emotions and work through them. And then I would say, from that, as you start processing what your life is going to look like and the extra support that your family is going to need, build that community. Like Rich said, go out to the events, meet and greet, and find what's going to work best for your child, but also what's going to fit into your family lifestyle best.
I like that. Okay, perfect. Well, before we were getting going, you guys were sharing that one of the challenges a lot of the individuals that are on the spectrum or have some sort of neurodivergence face is potential isolation. Now, granted, everybody's different, but a lot of isolation is a theme. What advice would you have, or tell us a little bit about how you're supporting families who feel like you're supporting the kids, the teens themselves, and you're supporting the families who are like, my kid really is challenged with that.
So when we first meet a family, we usually meet them through a community event or an open house. And our goal is to find out what those members are interested in and make sure that we have something similar here at Ease Club. And within our club space, we have different activities. So we have a big art area, we have a big games area, we have video games that are all multiplayer, so you still have to find a friend to play with. Um, and so we work to make sure that as we get to know individuals, we have their interests here at the club so that our club becomes a safe space for them.
Mm,
Because when you kind of take off that layer of um, the anxiety of going in somewhere new and not knowing what to expect and not knowing how to interact in the space. If we can peel back that layer and say, we've got that covered, you're in a safe space, we've got the things you like, then they're able to really dig in and start forming those relationships. Um,
mm,
and one of the things that we really encourage our members to do is to label the similarities they see with other members here. So if you hear
mm,
somebody talking about something that you like, start labeling those similarities. And that's how you're able to find commonalities and start those friendship bonds.
mm. Rich, what would you have to add as personal experience with your two guys about Ease Club and the role it plays with them? You know, you talked about the community appearance. What about their community?
Well, I think East Club, I consider it, I think of it as a social club, and I think even parents of kids with neurodivergent kids, we probably sign them up for a lot of things. So they may do sports, they may do art programs, they may have stuff at school that they participate in, and we're always trying to, and that's exactly why East Club was invented, was to provide an opportunity to socialize. I think the difference is that you've got these other organizations like sports where the kids are primarily doing the sports and the social is important but it's secondary,
Mm,
and we're East Club, it's the primary, and to have a kid where it feels like a safe space for them. I mean, I hate to use that term, but it's a real term. If this is, I'm not the odd man out. And I have my older son, he's very possessive of East Club. Like that's his place. He doesn't even want me to be in the building in that room with the other parents that I mentioned earlier. He wants
yeah.
me to be gone. He wants to say, so I'm 21 years old. I'm going to go in. These are my people. I'm going to do what I want. I don't want to hear from you guys. I'll see you in 3 hours. My younger guy, he craves attention. He craves interaction with kids, and that he doesn't necessarily get from other sources. And for him, I asked him, I said, what's your favorite aspects of East Club? And he said, hanging out with my friends, eating snacks, and playing video games. And I said, well, okay, what you can eat snacks and play video games at home. So what? And he said, well, I get to do it with my friends. And I've the older guy, he's still kind of introverted, but he likes to be around his peers. The younger guy is extroverted and he craves the opportunity to be around his peers. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think for them, I think this goes generally to kids of their age group, middle-aged kids, middle school kids, excuse me, teenagers, young adults. Already, whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, you want these experiences. Now throw in an extra layer of, sometimes it can be social awkwardness. Sometimes it could be, you know, uh, um, tics or some other aspect of your personality that, might result in you being picked on at school or in other settings. And here's an atmosphere where if everybody's not necessarily like you, because if you've met one person with autism or one person who's not neurodivergent, you've met one person there, there's lots of differences. But yet, they've been down a similar path. And they can feel comfortable with each other in a way that they may not be able to other places. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah, I love that. It definitely sounds like it's a big important thing, like you said, for different reasons to both your guys.
that's right.
Yeah, I love that. What about, I wanted to ask you, Rich, and then Allison, you've worked with so many different families. Having a kid who's different, you go out in the world, and sometimes people who aren't, like don't have a background, don't have anybody in their family with any kind of difference, it's can be awkward to know how to relate, how to interact. And it can also be complicated when you have a diagnosis that's less visible and still has impacts, but sometimes it affects behavior, and you could have judgy about doing when you go out into space. Talk to a lot of parents who have kids on the spectrum where that can be an issue. What has that been like, Rich, for you and your family in that journey? Has there been an evolution for you on how you cope with that? What would you say to other parents who are struggling with, like, having a kid who shows up a little differently, and I'm going to go to Target or I'm going to go out in the world?
Well, I think one of the coolest things that I've seen since becoming a parent of a kid with autism was the autism license plates that
Mm,
we have here in Kentucky, and it's very strange. It's not a big thing. You don't interact with the people that you're on the road with, but man, it's something else to receive almost, if you're driving around a lot during, on a weekly basis, you're probably going to run into someone with one of those license plates, and you think to yourself, oh gosh, I'm not alone. That we're
right.
out there, and I think there's a lot of, everybody, there's a lot of things out there in the world today. There's lots of challenges that we all face, but how many of these challenges are things that cross all divides
Mm,
in every community? And I think having someone, knowing folks, or having folks in your family or having touched your lives who have a disability like this, like we're talking about tonight, um, it it's more common than I realized. And so I think it's nice when we can run into someone who um, has walked that path or is a grandmother of a grandchild who has a condition of some kind or whatever, to have that kind of experience. And I think there's lots of misunderstanding out there as well. I think, like I said,
hmm
I think even within the past 25 years we were talking about earlier, I think there's been a lot of education and understanding that has spread for the better. But I think there's still folks out there that don't quite understand that they're coming from a different generation that treated people with autism or other kind of disabilities differently. Um, and they're still out there, and some of them are in my family, and and I have to sort of explain to them, well, he's like that because he's got ADHD, or he's like that because he's autistic. And it's hard as a dad, because you want your kid to fit in completely, and so that's not I won't say it's always the case. It's probably never the case that my kid fits in perfectly in every social group that he's in. Um, and so I think you have to, like Allison said, I think you have to come to kind of understanding with that yourself, sort of,
Hmm.
and learning to accept it is not easy. It's because you, as parents, we want to be defensive. We want to protect our kids. We want them to be for the world to see them the way we see them, which is full of talent, full of opportunity, and full of smiles. And it can be a challenge for us.
Yeah, Allison, what about you for parents who have that maybe that self-consciousness about like that interaction with the world? What have you observed and what advice do you give to families?
Um, it's really the same advice that I give to our teens and young adults who come in and they're worried about something that others may perceive about them. I like
Mhm.
to say that we are all more alike than we are different. And what you are experiencing is human, and everyone has had similar circumstances, even if they don't have the same circumstances. We've all had those times where we're unsure of how we're being perceived. And then, I think about when I'm out in the community and when I see someone struggling. Um, Sometimes we freeze and we don't know how to help. But doing something is usually better than doing nothing. And so coming in as a community member and taking away the social isolation that those experiences can give to people. And, if you see a parent in Target and their child is struggling, or if you see a parent at a restaurant and their teen is struggling, instead of making a disparaging comment, or instead of even saying nothing, making a sign of solidarity, acknowledging that you see them, you see that human struggle, and you're there. Um, Even if you don't insert yourself into the situation, it can be as simple as holding a door or picking up a dropped fork. But really humanizing that experience for everyone involved so that people don't feel even more isolated, because everyone's had an embarrassing experience happen in public. That's just part of being human.
Yeah, I love that. Rich, before we started taping, you shared a story about a restaurant experience where the person's reaction really was welcome to you and really disarmed your self-consciousness about it. Can you share that story?
Yeah, so I think my son was, probably about 5 years old. He had been diagnosed already, and like Allison said, I mean, I think, how many of us are blessed to have kids who have perfect manners and never act out in public? Pretty rare, but definitely it was my son. It was harder. And he was acting out, and he was disrupting the folks and the tables around us, and we were getting a lot of stink eye. And then my kid, just without thinking about it, accidentally flipped the plate, and food went all over the floor. And I'm mortified, right? As a parent, as a person, it's like I want my kid to be just like these other kids. And I was very upset, and I ran to the manager, and I said, please give me a broom, please give me a vacuum cleaner. I don't know if he had a kid with autism. I don't know if he knew what was going on with my kid, but regardless, he didn't matter, because he just laughed and just said, "Hey, I'm a dad too. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt," or words to that effect. And just, I'll just never forget it, because you it's quite a bit different when you're in a situation where people are kind of like they're looking away, or they're looking at you and giving you sort of angry looks, and you're trying your best to have you know to keep the kid happy, and to keep everything going along, and to have sort of just this nice human touch of it didn't matter if we had a kid with autism, didn't matter what was going on. He was just going to be nice to me, and he was going to be nice to my kid. And boy, that you know I came back to that restaurant really quickly. It's like that's the sort of experience we often sometimes don't get. If you're on an airplane or something like that with kids who have emotional challenges. Holy cow, the mistreatment that you can experience sometimes is really tough. And we're already parents. We already want everybody to think our kids are great, and sometimes just showing some empathy, it's amazing how far that'll go. And you don't know what's going on in their lives, what crosses they're bearing. Um, and that's good advice, period. But definitely true for parents with kids with disabilities.
Yeah, I love that. I love that story. Thank you for sharing. We're going to take a quick break, and then I want to talk to you, Allison, about some of the impact you've seen the club make with some of your teens. Probably one of your favorite topics.
Yes.
When you have a kid who is different, all your ducks need to be in a row, especially your money. Cam Howell with Primerica knows the joys and challenges as he and his wife raise their medically fragile son Brooks. Cam brings over 14 years of experience to help his clients be protected, have a plan for the future, reduce debt, and connect to resources. Get your financial house in order so that you can enjoy every moment with your child. Reach out today to Cam at 502 803 5075. And now back to the show. So, Allison, that front row seat to the impact that the programs you guys do and the club activities have, give us a story or two. Don't have to do names if it's confidential, but like the changes you've seen it make in some of your members.
Yeah, so um, we do see great impact from the work that we do in our members' lives. And we see those friendships form over the course of years, even. We have a member who met a friend in our virtual hangouts that we did during COVID. And they developed a strong friendship and did not live geographically close to each other. And so as things started opening back up, we saw that family recognize the opportunity to take that friendship even closer and form those bonds even closer. And so the families got together and they planned a vacation together. And so those two members who did not live geographically close to each other were
Mhm.
able to go and really spend that time together, getting to know each other and forming that lifelong friendship that they get to enjoy now. So that's a very sweet story of just the way that we can help to make those introductions for friends who have similar interests. Um, we also have an ambassador program. And so
Okay.
those ambassadors are older individuals. They have gone through some events with us and they have learned about us. And so they come to us or they come with us when we do community events a lot of the times. And so I have one ambassador who loves to go out and meet individuals and has really found her conversation opener in finding friends who are similar to her. And she starts her conversations with, "Have you heard of East Club?" And that's a great way for her to break the ice with her peers that she's meeting, but also help spread the word about East Club.
So, folks are going to want to know more about you. Give us your website. How do they find out more about you or your socials?
Yeah, so our website is easeclubky.org, and that's ESCLUBKY.org.
Fantastic. Now, folks that are near you, they're going to want to come and learn about your programs. Some of our listeners are in other states. Tell me, you said about the organizational structure, and where else are you guys?
So we have a national organization as well, and that national organization is Erin's Hope for Friends, and they are located in Georgia. So we have another club location in Georgia right now.
Okay, so just Lexington in Georgia.
For right now, yes.
Do they get people all the time who hear something like this and say, "How do we bring this to our state?"
I believe they do. I know that they've met with a couple of different individuals just in the last year about expanding services.
Okay, so if folks want to have that idea hearing it today, they should reach out to who?
So they could reach out to our national organization, which is Erin's Hope for Friends.
Fantastic. I love that. So tell me a little bit about locally. What are some of the things you guys would like to do that are kind of on the horizon agenda, but you're not doing now? What's the future look like for you guys?
So we have a club space in Lexington right now, and we have members who drive over an hour to attend our club events. We have members who come in from Louisville. We have members who come in from Eastern Kentucky, and obviously they are very committed to the club and committed to the friends that they have made here. And that's wonderful. But we would love to help those individuals form friendships that are closer to where they are. And so we are looking into ways that we can expand access to individuals who don't live in Lexington, and looking at the potential of opening clubs or doing club events in other areas of the state as well.
I love that. And how do you guys get your funding? What's that look like?
So we are donor funded. 75% of our operations budget comes from donations and sponsorships. So we rely on the generosity of our community to support our program for our friends.
I love that. And obviously, on your website, I'd assume it's pretty easy to go there and make a donation.
Absolutely. We would love that. We also have information for membership and for volunteer opportunities. So we obviously love donors to donate, but if they are close to us, they're welcome to come in and see the club space as well.
I love that. No, so how do you utilize volunteers then?
So our club events keep a very low ratio of volunteers and staff to members so that we can make sure everybody's getting the support they need while they're in our space. So we keep a 4-to-1 ratio for our teen and young adult events. So for each event that we typically have 3 or 4 staff members and volunteers who are here helping host the event, play the games, get beat at basketball, all of the fun things.
I love it. So, Rich, I know I was in the nonprofit field for 23 years and have an appreciation for the role that board members play. So, what motivated you to want to serve at that level with this organization? What's your passion for
Well, I have 2 kids in it, and
it?
this is their passion. When like we had recently had really bad weather right here in Kentucky, and we had to cancel one night, and that was the night that my son was supposed to go. And let me tell you, he was disappointed. I mean, that was um, a real blow for him. This is something that both my boys are really passionate about, and I want it to continue, and I want it to be a success. And I think not only, right now our focus has been, as we're a kind of a new organization to develop here in Lexington, the greater Lexington area. But as Allison said, we're looking beyond. We're looking into the Louisville area. We're also looking at different age groups, right? Because I think so, if you're in the special education or special needs field, you know that it seems like a lot of the resources are geared towards you get little kids, and that's great because those are the formative years, and that's really going to make a difference in terms of their long-term life. But what do you do when a kid is in middle school or high school or they're adults? And we have senior citizen centers. We don't have centers necessarily for my son. And so that's why East Club is so important. I want it to survive, I want it to prosper, and I want to help as many kids as I can. So that's why I got involved.
Fantastic. Well, and again, board members like you are what make nonprofits thrive, combined with amazing people like Allison. So, um,
And our wonderful
can,
donors. We have some we have so many different donors, but we've got some really great folks who have really kept the lights on, and we're so appreciative of them. And very very often it's because they want to do good work in our community, but also because they've been touched
yeah,
by folks in their lives, in their families. And they're like, hey, been there, done that. My son, my cousin, my sister's son, whatever, they've experienced it. And so it's a no-brainer for them to donate to something they know is going to help maybe their kids, maybe their family members, and people like them. So we
Yeah,
really
that's
appreciate
absolutely right. I
of
met
our
with a
supporters.
donor. I met with a donor earlier today. And as she was leaving, she said, "Could I get an application?" And I said, "Sure, of course." And she said, "I really think my nephew needs to come here."
mm,
So it is definitely something that is needed in the community, and a way for our donors to be involved in multiple different ways.
Mhm.
give us the website again.
easeclubky.org.
Fantastic. And again, we hope a lot of folks are hearing this, especially in the Lexington area. Maybe somebody that could really be served by East Club. We'd love for you to get in contact with them and see if how they can play a role in your kid's life. Obviously, volunteers donors. And I want that national organization to get calls from all over from our listeners to be like, how do we bring this to our city? We're a little jealous of those folks over in
Absolutely.
Lexington and
Yes.
the good fun that they're having. We don't want Ease Club in this organization, Erin's Hope for Friends, to be a best kept secret, nor do we want this podcast to be. So if you enjoyed today's episode, like us, review us, rate us, go to the Facebook page, follow the podcast, and share it with another parent. Like Rich was talking big, and I mentioned too, big part of this journey is feeling like you're alone and no one else is going through the same thing. And I get a lot of feedback that when we have our guests come on, whether it's the individuals or the nonprofits, you feel like, hey, these are people who get it. They've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, as Rich said. And so we want to build a community, but we're a best kept secret. We could use your help to get the word out there. And you probably know other families. Maybe someone in their 30s who grew up living life in a wheelchair, and yet they'd love to share their story. And boy, it'd be great if somebody who has a 6-year-old in a wheelchair heard that 30-year-old guest sharing his or her story. Or another nonprofit like the one we featured today that's doing amazing work somewhere in the United States. Reach out to me. Let me know. Those would become our future guests. Rich, Allison, thank you guys so much for sharing your story.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Fantastic. Well, again, check us out, like us on the Facebook page. We'll see everybody next time.